All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's edition of The Great Movies, a discussion of A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night from 2014. My name is Andy Wolverton, and I'm delighted to be joined once again by my partner in crime, maybe my vampire in crime, Darnice Jasper. Darnice and I are both librarians in the Anne Arundel County, Maryland Public Library System, which, along with the Library Foundation, sponsors this program. And our next virtual meeting will be on Friday, November the 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern, when we'll discuss an unusual love story, Certified Copy from 2010, starring Juliette Binoche. Now, again, I recommend that you don't read anything about this movie beforehand. Just turn it on and go. Signups for that begin on, when do they begin? Oh, there they are. They begin on October the 21st, which will be here before you know it. And let me throw that into the chat. So there you go. You can bookmark that page. Okay. And if you'd like to join our email list, you can send me an email at awolverton@aacpl.net. That way you'll get all the news about our upcoming programs before anybody else. All right, I can't wait to get into this discussion. So, what can you do with a vampire story that hasn't already been done? Well, plenty, as we found out. A Girl Walks Home clearly contains elements that have been done before, yet as a whole, the film is quite unique. As film critic Sheila O'Malley says in her review, quote, "The film launches itself into a dreamscape of its own that has a unique power and pull. The images are suggestive and symbolic, resonant with intersecting meanings and emotion, nothing too spelled out or underlined. Some of the images sit there unmoving for too long, but that very same stasis also helps create and enforce the underlying tension, the tormented space between people, even when they are standing very close together. This film feels extremely personal." Now, although we're meant to believe A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night takes place in Iran, the film was actually shot in Taft, California, not too far from Bakersfield. This is Bad City, a place that evokes desolation, crime, and much more. There's a lot going on in the opening. A young man named Arash looks like kind of an Iranian James Dean. He's got a really cool 50s Thunderbird, the symbol of freedom of driving through America's highways, but there's really very little freedom going on here. Bad City is indeed a bad city filled with drugs, drug dealers, pimps, hookers, and more. And throughout the film, we never even see a hint of law enforcement. That tells you things are really bad. We do see an industrial landscape along with many surroundings that suggest ruin and decay, a setting that conveys loneliness, isolation, and being misunderstood. Each of the characters in the film are themselves isolated and struggling with something that keeps them away from other people and themselves. The director, Anna Lily Amirpour, was born in England to Iranian parents, then moved to Miami when she was young in the 1980s. She got the idea for the film when she first put on a chador. Amirpour states in an interview, quote, "For me, when I put it on, I felt very badass. It has a weight and it moves in a certain way, and I just felt like a stingray, and I wanted to be on a skateboard." The film's title suggests a girl that's vulnerable, in trouble, or in danger. But as we see, that title gets inverted, as does the chador. Rather than a symbol of oppression, it becomes a garment of power. Most traditional vampire movies place men in the lead role, but A Girl Walks Home gives us a female vampire, yet she's much more than a female Dracula. She mostly targets men who are abusing women, acting as something of an avenging angel. Even when she tells the young boy in the film, "Be good or else," it's a warning to all men. The film is filled with an unforgettable black and white cinematography and an extremely unique soundtrack. Now, about music, Amirpour stated in an interview, quote, "It's one of the best things in life. Who can explain how you want to crawl inside a song and live there? Sometimes I design everything around the music." Now, I found when I was watching this movie, and I always take notes when I'm watching a movie for our discussion, I probably took more notes on this film than any film we've done in a long time. But I wanted to look back, and I looked at my notes, and one of the things that I wrote down is from probably my favorite scene in the entire movie, which takes place with Arash and the girl in her apartment. And my notes read, "There's an absolutely beautiful long shot of Arash approaching the girl with gentleness, lifting his head up, exposing his neck, but she doesn't bite him. A beautiful moment, achingly long, as if she's experiencing something real and wants to keep the fragility of it from shattering." I just was in love with that scene, but not only that scene, many, many others that I really, really like. And I can't wait to hear what some of your favorite scenes are. Now, the film does run a little long for a horror movie at 101 minutes, and Amirpour shot over 3 hours of footage, but I'm glad it's not shorter. It's a film that takes its time and allows us to explore the characters, especially the girl. So I'm very eager to hear your thoughts on the film. So Darnice, let's see who we have first.
Okay. Hands, anyone? No one wants to be first.
Oh, come on.
Come on. Okay, got John, then Jen. And then Susan. John, can you unmute? Oh.
Yep.
And I see you, Sue, too.
There we go.
There you go, John.
All right.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah, that scene that Andy was talking about, that with the music and the band that wrote that music is called White Lies, and I can sit here and pretend like I knew that, but I didn't. I looked it up. The thing that gets me about this movie right off the bat is, I mean, here's a brand new filmmaker in her, at that time, I believe in her late 20s. And she starts out right off the bat. She makes a black and white movie, not in English, filmed in California, claiming, or in the movie is in Iran. Sure, box office success, right? But she ended up making something incredibly innovative. And I just really, it is, you watch the scenes and you can't look away. Yeah, I mean, you just stare at it, and it just draws you in. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And as a side note, trivia, the director appears in the movie twice. Does anyone know where she was?
Yes.
Well, she was
I only saw
riding
her
this.
once.
She was a skateboarder. She was the one actually on the skateboard because the actress couldn't do it. And then the other one was at the party scene where she was the girl next to the girl that he was talking to. Yeah, that's a skeleton girl or whatever. Yeah.
All right, thank you, John.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got Jan, then Sue, then Susan.
Hey, everybody. Evening.
Hey, Jan.
Andy, you nailed that apartment scene. That apartment scene is what sealed the deal for me. Not just that long take, but the patience it took when those two characters are that close to each other, and we know what the girl is capable of, and he bends back his head and exposes his neck, and it seems to last forever until she makes the choice she makes and then lowers her face right below his neck on his chest like she's getting comfort. And then in the very next scene, you have this Morricone musical moment where a character who I think is called Rockabilly is doing a ballet kind of a dance with a helium balloon. It lasts for maybe 40 seconds. I can't totally explain it, but I will tell you, if you merge Morricone kind of music with the girl singer from a group called the Federales, and like John, I've suddenly become an expert on the bands in this soundtrack who I've never heard of before. That scene with the helium balloon lasts maybe 30 or 40 seconds. Absolutely beautiful. In the middle of this horrible place, this lost character is finding a moment of joy with a helium balloon. And I'm like, I am all in for this movie. Those two scenes back to back sealed the deal for me.
Jan, thank you for that. And I'm with you that as soon as the balloon scene came on, I thought, I have no idea what this means. I don't really need to know what it means.
There you go.
I just, like you said, I just enjoyed living in that moment.
That was it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was it.
That was it. I've seen enough David Lynch movies that I can just go with it. And whether it has enormous meaning or not, by God, what a moment that was. Yeah. Yes.
A beautiful visual moment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm going to interject here because I was fascinated by this. The dad actually has a Bacon rating of 2. The actor who played the father was in True Lies with Bill Paxton, who was in Apollo 13 with Kevin Bacon. So there you go. You did.
Very nice.
All right, so we've got Sue next, and then Susan.
Well, I went into this with worry because I don't like vampire movies. I don't like horror movies. But I'll have to say I came out thinking, yes, you go, girl. This is what vampires are for. And of course, the drug guy was such a villain. And she really played our heartstrings with the boy and the father. And, you know, she used all the stereotypes of the good son for in the Muslim family and all that sort of stuff. And I just love her way of getting revenge and getting away with it. And yes, the pauses could drive me crazy at certain points, but there were others that I loved. And one was at the end where he's driving the car and pulls over and waits and waits. But it's just this feeling of, it's not driving off into the sunsets. It's driving off and thinking about it and sort of getting your feet back under you. And so it was like I always felt it was like Rebel Without a Cause, but satisfying. And so, and I also kept thinking, well, I thought she was more Iranian than she is in a way, but this is the way, I mean, she is depicting things that are, in fact, probably in the Iranian culture, which we never hear about. And the prostitutes, for example. So I just have to say, I was pretty pleased with how she managed to take her revenge for many of us.
Thanks, Sue. And
that didn't know it.
Yeah. That ending I want us to talk about at some point. We don't have to do it right now, but I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, Darnice, who we have next?
So we got Susan and then Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah, hate to be a buzzkill here. There were some things about this movie that I liked. I thought it was very stylish, and of course the camera work was terrific. The black and white cinematography, very crisp and sharp and really pretty. Of course, I like the cat. As you can see, my picture is of my cat. I changed my picture. I like the actor that played the pimp with the Persian tattoos all over him. I thought that was pretty cool. I kind of felt bad when they killed him off. I mean, he was sort of an interesting character. The music, the only musical reference I even understood was when she talked about Lionel Richie. And I think that was the only English in the whole movie. Hello, hello, you know. I think I'm aging out of pop culture, but let me see. I have seen enough movies with drug dealers injecting heroin, pimps, hookers. I think it's a cliche at this point. I hope this director advances in the subject matter. I just think it's overdone and not interesting. And on the whole, I thought the thing was just basically a glorified music video. It was sort of self-indulgent and with some good things about it. And I recognized that there were some scenes that were moving. But on the whole, I've seen better. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Susan.
Okay, that's good commentary. Thank you so much. Lisa, then John, then Ed.
Kids, where do we begin?
Oh, here we go. Buckle in.
Okay. I wanted to start off this by going needles and fangs, needles and fangs, because they're both pointy and they go in. And I hear you, Susan, but we all have different ways of destruction. And I like that some are man-made and some come from some other place we don't even know of. Some side notes. The soundtrack was fantastic. It was diverse. It brought in so much. It made me excited that Sue's going to answer her phone. It encompassed so many styles, but it was its own, right? Because I have endured, and that's the only way to put it, Tarkovsky long shots, right? And even though there was slowness, I was very grateful for it because we're fast moving people over here and we like our quick edits, but there was time to breathe in a way that didn't, for me, feel phony. And it felt like the new wave cinema, the first ones, like the 400 Blows maybe, where things are slowing down and nothing is very obvious. And by the way, about that, where was it? Oh, the one thing I had a little nervousness about was cat endangerment. For a moment, just when the father, I was like, please, God, no. That was my big fear, was the cat. It was the fangs, both in the cart. About both. Okay, also, this film means a lot to me in our current time and what's going on in Iran about women stepping up. It's just like they just went like this, right? And for the, at the end, see, the thing that I appreciated about this film is that you're never quite sure how the scene ended, right? We didn't know until we saw him later. Did he survive the night, right? And we don't know just because the car started up moving, because when the car it had that shot from the road and they're driving along, I was wondering, who's driving the car? Is she driving the car? Is he dead, right? And also at the end, we don't know. And maybe there's always going to be a quietness between them because it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous as undefined. I wanted to throw in a thing about, what else was it? The flow. Oh, the music was fantastic. And it just seems the women's, when her little teeth came down, that was fantastic. I heard myself screaming, yes, right? At the screen, because it was such an intense scene, because we've seen what this man can do to women, right? And the presumption of power, and just come in and you want Coke, you want this, and always with the touch. I was surprised when they're in front of when he meets her at 10 p.m., wherever that was. I was always afraid when people touched her without asking, right? Consent issues. But he just wanted to see her ear. And that scene in her room, I was mesmerized. I found myself becoming hypnotized by this movie. There's only been one other scene, a scene of we don't know which way it's going to go. And it was a prison film I watched years ago at the Castro, where it's unclear if both characters are gay, right? And one is reaching out to the other under the auspices that the lights are out, and you don't know if the other one's asleep or not. And I was in a theater where everybody was holding their breath, because haven't we all been in that situation where we've been completely vulnerable with somebody, and if it goes wrong, it goes seriously wrong, right? So I was immensely grateful for that. I also want to put, I'm looking over here at my notes because I'm too busy moving around. I happen to be watching at the same time something that is taught that on Hulu, which I must have missed a long time ago. And I just want to throw a quick plug in for, it's called Dietland, and all about what in really makes a woman, right? As opposed to how they appear in the male gaze. And I'm very grateful for this film. Thank you, whoever came up with it. Bill, thanks for dressing up. I appreciate. Thank you. You looked great. For a moment, I thought she'd arrived. That's pretty much all I got. I'm just so joyous about this fucker. Excuse me. Yeah, that's it. Okay, muting.
Thank you, Lisa, as always. Lisa, before we finish, remind me to tell you a story about the Castro that I think you'll be interested in. Okay, all right.
Okay, so we got John and Ed.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the movie. I tend to like long takes. Earlier in the week, I watched Solaris. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie, but it features a scene of the astronaut Burton driving what turns out to be Tokyo for 5 minutes. That's all he does is sit in the car and you're there with him. And it has a really interesting effect on the viewer. Well, this is the one that Tarkovsky did. There's an earlier one that was done I think in 68. Tarkovsky's was done, I think, in 79. That's the one I'm talking about. There's been 3 films that I know of, 2 Russian and 1 American. I couldn't be bothered with the American. So I like long takes. The problem that I have with it, and it's not a serious problem, but I thought the composition of the frame was more as if she was taking art photographs than cinematographic images. And while I don't find that to be objectionable, I think the problem was I mean, I saw one link. I don't know if anybody, well, actually, the word link is kind of ironic. There's a scene where the train comes through. They're out and outside at night, and a train comes through. Remember that scene? Well, that's, I think, a homage to O. Winston Link, who was a Virginia photographer who photographed steam trains at night. You can go on website and you'll see images like that. And there were other things, like I thought that there was some reference to George Tice. I don't know if you know him or not, who photographs, and he started out with photographing Paterson, New Jersey, which is near where I live, but he's moved on. He photographs mostly urban decay. In the process, he makes it look somewhat beautiful, or at least arresting. So I thought there was a lot of that going on. So it was like an art school project in a way. Again, I'm not objecting to that, but I would have liked it more if it had been a more personal film, in my view, if I had thought of it as a personal film, because I was struggling to find out, well, what is this film about? It's not a typical vampire film. And is there a political message here? Is there some other sub-theme that she's trying to underscore that I'm missing? I mean, I know I have white privilege and all that, but I do try to see what the director is driving at, and I had a hard time doing that. And I want to watch it again, but I still can't tell you what I'm comfortable saying what the film was about. The other thing, and this will be my last comment, I thought the woman who played the vampire was really sweet. And I don't know if anybody's seen the graphic novel series called Persepolis by an Iranian. She looks a lot like a character. The first thing I thought is, she looks like a character from a graphic novel. She doesn't look like your typical film actress. And I thought that was a really telling point about what she's driving at there.
Is that me?
That she's not making, she's by no, I mean, the most attractive woman that he has any connection with is the one who he steals the earrings from. And she kind of disappears after the party. You don't really see her. The only reference to her that I can remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is when he gives the earrings to his vampire friend. I don't know that they're lovers at that point. I'm not sure what the status is, but anyway, but she doesn't appear anymore. She's very attractive, but that's not what he's interested in. So it's a very, I think, it's a great movie. I think it's deservedly, I'm glad we watched it. I never would have known about it otherwise. It was just typical of a lot of films that you come up with. So I was really glad that we had a chance to look at it.
Thanks, John. I'm glad to expand your cinematic universe a little bit.
You often do, Andy. You often do.
Always, all of us do. Yeah.
Well, a couple of those things that you mentioned, I want to point out, and I think Jan just put in the chat that this movie is a graphic novel as well. Now, Amirpour was influenced by so many things. I mean, obviously, we've talked about the music already. She does have a background in art, photography, and I think you're seeing a first-time director just putting everything on the screen. And I think that accounts maybe for some of what you're experiencing. I experienced that when I first saw this film a couple of years ago. I appreciated it, I liked it, but the second time, I just fell in love with it. And I don't know if I just put some of those things aside, some of those questions that I had, like you had, but I don't know what it was, but I just totally got absorbed into it the second time. But no, you make very, very good points.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got John, then Ed, then Bill. Oh, before I forget, just a reminder, I was also going to put this in the chat. If you would like to view the links that people are putting in the chat later, you are able to save the chat. There's a 3 dots at the bottom, right above the chat box. I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end to save the chat, and then allow you to keep the links, because I know I can't open links and have Zoom open at the same time. So is that possible? Maybe it's just me.
Yeah,
I
don't know.
can.
Yeah.
But just to say that on my Zoom, it's at the lower right-hand corner of the chat. Not at the
Okay.
top.
Gotcha.
But so just look for 3 dots.
Look
in
for
the
3
chat
dots.
on the
Thanks.
right-hand side.
Okay. All right, Ed, John, and Ed. Where'd John go? I lost him. Did we lose John?
I've said all I have to say for
Oh,
now.
there you are. Okay, gotcha.
Unless you
All
want
right,
to hear me
sorry.
say more.
No, I apologize. And I lost you in the screen, so I got confused. Okay,
You've heard
Ed,
enough.
you're next. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I really enjoy this movie. Andy, as always, great picks. And just as an aside, I had to write. I noticed 2 people in the film. The drug addicted dad. He played the limo driver in How I Met Your Mother. He was in that, and then the woman called Ati, who's Mozan Marno. She plays in The Blacklist. In case anybody's ever watched that series, she was really good in that. So, but that's an aside. So what I liked most about this movie was that the bullies are getting their comeuppance. I mean, it's just really fulfilling as a viewer and someone who was bullied to just see bullies get it, so that was kind of nice. So it's almost like the vampire is a superhero, in that motif. So that's really a nice touch. And although, it was a different language, the emotion was universal when it came through. They were speaking in different languages, but I could just feel the intensity in the language, and that's always universal. That's why it's always good to watch, not to watch a foreign movie with the English audio or whatever. It just loses touch, I think. And that's just my opinion. But anyway, what I thought was just so striking. I mean, this place is called Bad City. And yeah, no kidding, there's this ravine of bodies, and there's just like, it's accepted. That's where you put the bodies. You don't bury them, just throw them in there. And it's like, how bad is Bad City? Well, let me tell you, it's really bad. So I just thought that was kind of almost a comical element in that sense, or or as Flannery O'Connor would use, the absurd or the gothic. And so it had that flair in it for me as well. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Ed.
Sorry, Gary made a good point today. It was like, yeah, she's an angel. She's an angel. No, she's a vampire. just, you know, whatever. Okay, so we've got Bill next.
Good evening.
I love it.
Sorry about that. So this is interesting to see an Iranian version of Twilight.
No.
Oh, come on. Nice looking guy and a girl with similar features. It must have been. No. I had a question for everybody. So I liked the movie. I thought it really was more of a statement on women and power for women. And that's, I thought, was kind of a dig at Iran and their current state of affairs. So if you put it in that context, I was able to enjoy it. What I didn't understand, and maybe people can help me, was that interjected throughout the film are scenes of oil rigs. And I'm not really sure whether that just meant there was a lot of pumping going on, you know, or what the connection was. But it was confusing to me. Maybe someone can enlighten me as to what that might have been all about.
I think Darnice was giving us a visual right there.
Well, actually, yeah. So Susan put a comment like this in the chat. She said that it gave her a very big visual of like fangs, like vampires sucking. So, you know, every time we saw that, it was the morning after she had attacked someone. And so that to me, and then Bruce puts in it like heartbeats, right? So there's a lot of the pumping action is kind of subliminal, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, that's how I thought.
And anybody else have any ideas on that?
Sue?
Well, I thought it had a lot to do with a parallel with Iran draining its country of its life, and all the oil that it would suck out of the ground, all the life it sucked out of the people, all the life it sucked out of women. I mean, I actually felt that way during the movie.
Very nice. Good point. Good point. Does that answer your question, Bill? I had to do my reference thing. That's it. Okay, so we're going to go to Dee first because she hasn't talked yet, and then we'll talk to Lisa.
So I loved this movie, and I never would have watched this movie. I had never heard of it. If you told me that I had the option of watching an Iranian vampire movie, let alone an Iranian vampire Western movie, I never would have watched it, but I loved it. So thanks so much for putting it on the schedule. I thought the cinematography was striking, that I'm not sure I breathed for the whole however many hours it was, because I was so taken with the imagery. There was one thing I was wondering about, though, I'm not sure how to feel about, and that's what can only be called the naked breast scene, where she's taking a bath. We don't need to see her breasts to see she's taking a bath. And it doesn't really tell us anything about her, that she is indeed naked when she bathes, since that's pretty normal. And it, you know, I at some point watching 80s movies, I just got so appalled at the particular version of the male gaze that meant that in every movie, the movie should be just going along just fine. And then, hey, naked women's breasts. And then the movie goes on from there. Because it felt like a creepy male gaze. Or exploitative, like the director wanted to see the actress's breasts. And I'm not at all sure how to feel about that bathtub scene. I don't know whether the director wanted to see her breasts. There were no naked men, at least that I remember. Maybe I missed them. And so I just don't know how to feel about that. It just seemed a little bit like, hey, a movie, things are going on, and hey, naked breasts. So that was the one thing I didn't know how to think about, but I just loved the movie.
Dee, I might be able to answer, maybe not even answer that, but address some of that. I watched several interviews with Amirpour about several aspects of the film, and that came up once in an interview, and her only answer to that was, yeah, you can't show that in Iran, and that was all she said. So I don't know. That's a great question, and I wondered it both times. When I first saw it, I thought, why is this in here? And then the second time, it just seemed to jar me out of the movie. So I don't know. Other people have any ideas about that?
And Andy, actually, I did wonder about that too, with whether maybe in this movie, it was an expression of female freedom. Mm. But I just don't know. But I like that idea.
Does anybody else have any ideas about that? That's a great question.
So my thought was maybe it was maybe a metaphor for baptism. That might be grasping at religious straws, but yeah, I don't know. That's the knee-jerk reaction I had to it.
Yeah, Bill B, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I sort of felt like that. It may have been the fact that this director was trying to sort of indirectly stick her thumb into the eye of the Iranian culture, the patriarchal culture. And so I think I got the feeling that she did it more as an expression of, yeah, here is a woman taking a bath. What's wrong with that? She's naked. What's wrong with that? And I think Andy's point of if this had been shown in Iran, they would have gone nuts. And that was probably the thing I liked most about the film, was the fact that it took all of these conventions from so many genres, the horror genre, the spaghetti Western, et cetera, and to a certain extent, it turned them on their head. And it was that whole thing of these genres that are generally very patriarchal and very male dominated. Yeah. And here, and it's in the very title of the film, right? It's been a great discussion tonight. I've been really enjoying everybody's take on it. I had some of the same misgivings that John had, though I will readily admit I have only seen it once, and I think I really need to see it a second time, because I was a little bit put off by some of the slowness in certain aspects, and also sort of, so what really is this movie about? And yet I do get the feeling overall that it was this director's take on being a transplanted Iranian who identified with, I think right now, with all of these women in Iran who are trying to find their identities again in the face of this patriarchal onslaught and all of this oppression that they're under. And she's doing it in these kind of sly and clever ways. And so here you've got this woman walking in the night, and you go, oh, well, just from the title of that, here's this woman who is walking home alone, and she's got to be afraid and oppressed, etc. And no, she's both the protagonist and the antagonist. She's in control. She's the person that is meting out justice and revenge and leading her own life, regardless of this insanity that's going on around her. So I think despite the minor misgivings I had on this first viewing, I have to give the movie major points for originality and thematically. It was so interesting on so many levels. Though, like I said, it did kind of bother me. It's like, well, what exactly is she trying to say here? But more and more from hearing this discussion, it's almost more like she was riffing, and it's just this, her own personal takes and how it came out of her, both in living out her life in the West and what her heritage is and what's still going on in her native country.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, so we got Lisa, then Bill.
Okay, so to me, and I forgot to mention that the slowness, apart from creating space to create engagement and tension, very much a sense of vampire time. Think about how vampires live their lives. You know, a moment to us is nothing, you know? So sitting, and I appreciate that, because so we're all like, well, what are you doing? And what are you thinking? And it's like, maybe give people, they get a moment to think and feel. And I very much like that. Someone was talking about the soundtrack. When he takes his car back and starts, I think that's when it is. I mean, it's almost note for note, the good, bad, and the ugly. And in putting that in, it always reminds me, I love that title so much, because there is no, everybody's everything. You know, they say, oh, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it's all merged, right? So that, and I think I have one more thing. Oh, I'm going to, because I really appreciated that comment about the female gaze, I'm going to throw into the chat Joey Soloway. But the only reason I'm saying this is because I have to mute before I go get it. The female gaze, which talks about the very thing that you're talking about, the way men, when they talk about the male gaze versus what is the female gaze. And I think it's a beautiful article, might be a TED Talk as well. Yeah, so that's it for me. Look for me in the chat.
Awesome.
That's
Okay,
great.
so Bill's next.
So I thought that the bath scene and then the scene where she got her ears pierced were scenes that balanced her out and pointed out that she had vulnerability and feelings and a humanness, that she wasn't just a monster. She wasn't a monster at all, really. So I thought that those were kind of there to balance out to make it show her humanity. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but that's why I think they were there.
Awesome.
Okay, yeah, good.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Bill. I see you.
So Andy said we were going to talk about the ending later, so let me just bring it up now. My thought, what was going on when he stopped the car, was that he recognized the cat and realized, if she's got the cat, what happened to my dad? And so then he was debating whether he was going on with her or not. And in the end, he chose to go with her. Now, I don't know if he really knew she was a vampire, because there was never any indication that he knew about what was going on, but he knew something happened to his dad and she's got the cat. Yet he did continue on with her. So maybe he's looking past whatever might have happened and said, I like being with her and I'm going with her. So I don't know. That's my thought.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna come in fast and sideways and just say that they were complicit. You know that scene where it reminds me of Alan Arkin in The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, when he finds his dad, and it's like, I did this, right? But she had the cat. So we're actually partners now, right? And I'd like to think that, because then they're both in the car when they drive off. But I think it was that more, because if I was in his circumstances, I would feel completely responsible for my father's death. But then I say the cat. So, okay, thank you for letting me come in sideways.
All right, now I agree. I agree that it was not the path he planned to take, but also he had that whole time watching her in the apartment while she was gathering all of the things that she's taken from her victims, which was a really interesting moment. And I thought, I thought I saw two heads in the car as they drove off, but that could just be my imagination. But I would imagine that if that was going to be the case, that she was the one driving away, that we would have seen her go, we might have seen him be shown on the side of the road, right? I think that the filmmaker, given their relationship between the two of them, would have given that respect to that character as to not just leave him on the road. I mean, drive away without you knowing. I don't know. That's just me. But I would actually like to talk about why this is a Western outside of the music. If you can, I don't know if any of you have stuff about that or if anybody else. I mean, I was kind of struggling with the Western part of it, other than there's moments where there's some barren land, there's this anti-hero kind of thing, and the music was very Leon, but I would love to have some insight on that. But Debbie, I see your hand up.
I think Debbie's got something.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say she's identified in the credits as only the girl. So in a sense, she's the girl with no name.
Gotcha.
And she's there to set things right in Bad City. And I got to say that this movie has one of the weirdest meet cutes I've ever seen. On top of that, also while I'm talking, I love the music. This is the second time I've seen the movie. I knew what it was about. Even before I saw it the first time, I'd heard enough about it to know it was going to be a vampire movie and that this woman was not going to be a victim. But I liked it for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's kind of like, it's almost like the director consulted with both David Lynch and what's his name there? Quentin Tarantino. It had that feel to it, like, callbacks to other movies and plus the weirdness throughout that sort of felt Lynchian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could say a lot about this movie. It's a great horror movie for people who don't like horror movies. I will say that too. I mean, it's so different and interesting, and I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you,
that's
Debbie.
great. Thanks, Debbie.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else?
I was just going to say, to me, the Western aspect of it is someone bringing justice to a lawless town. I mean, we see that in Westerns all the time. And for me, that was what resonated with me.
Awesome. Bill, see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with Andy on that one because in both spaghetti Westerns and just a lot of like later Clint Eastwood movies like High Plains Drifter, etc., it really was like at some level, it was almost like this vampire had been sent to clean up the town. She's the exterminating angel. I think there was that feeling of this town, like Bad City, right? I very much, another reference that I think was in there, and because people have touched on so many of the references in this movie, but one was Sin City, Frank Miller's piece that was directed by Rodriguez, and the fact that, again, you had this. In fact, they may have even taken that shot of the pit of all the dead bodies from a particular shot that comes out of Sin City. So I think there was some homage there. One other thing I wanted to mention about she played so many games too. Apparently, I was reading with translations and words, etc., because what was translated on the screen as Bad City in English, somebody else pointed out that in Farsi, in Iranian, it was more like of the wind, which sort of relates to the fact that it was this place that was no place and nowhere. It was completely removed from normal existence. So, and I always kind of got that feeling in spaghetti westerns, because even though they're the Western genre, it was always like they were removed and placed outside the realm of true reality. It was kind of a surreal existence going on.
Yeah, that's great, Bill. And of course, the music in those films makes that feeling come alive even more, just like the music in this film does too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Great.
Okay.
Thank you. That answered my question. As anyone else have some comments, have some thoughts about the relationships, the cat? we had a lot of love for the cat.
The cat, yeah, the cat's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Debbie.
As far as the relationships, I thought one of the things that kind of struck me was that she kept exposing herself a little bit more with each encounter. First, there's the part where she chooses not to bite his neck, and then there's the part where they're like talking to each other, and she says, "You don't even know me," and he says, "Of course I don't know you. We just met." And it's like, okay. And then they get to the part where she basically almost demands that he pierce her ears. And I thought, wow, that is really making yourself vulnerable and letting somebody, do something like that to you. And then finally, I was going to say, I mean, it seems to be about more than just vengeance here. It seems to me that kind of gets in, it suggests that when people get into relationships, they take chances. You don't know at first who you're dealing with. And the process of getting to know a person can be like that. It's like, you don't know what bad things they've done. And you only know yourself what bad things you've done and what you're willing to share, that sort of thing. It kind of, the whole thing sort of suggested that in a way, to me anyhow. And I thought the ending was just perfect. It's like the opposite of the happily ever after. It's more like, will this relationship survive? Will he survive? Yeah. This kind of thing. I don't know.
Will she survive? I think.
Will she survive? That's
right?
Another one.
Right.
That's another one. Yeah.
She left all her music. Like I felt like that was significant.
Like all part of her life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sue,
also,
I saw your hand up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Debbie.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I just got through watching a thing about editing recently, and I was just really impressed with the editing on this, and the sound design was amazing. The other thing I was going to say was that it's slipped my mind now, but just altogether, just a well-constructed movie, I thought, and just beautifully done. And I can't think of what I was going to say. Oh, well, sorry.
That's okay.
You can come back. We can
come back.
Okay,
around.
if I can think about it, if I can remember it, I'll let you know.
Okay.
So we got Sue next.
Well, I like the give and take in the relationship with Arash and the girl who could not be named. Finally, there was something beautiful. I mean, he was gentle with his father. He dealt with all this evil, and yet he's gentle with her. With the other girl, she had been treated badly, and yet the two of them work back and forth to become into this relationship. So what happens in the future? Who knows? But they were giving it a chance. And that has to be some sort of gratification. And it made sense to me. And she's saying, oh, guess what? Now I know there actually are, or maybe there is, one good guy out there. So there's hope. So I thought that was kind of cool. I like that part. I'm just an idealist, romantic.
Nothing wrong with that.
Always room for that. Okay, Bruce, sorry, hand up.
Thank you. Actually, I'm going to admit that I saw the movie a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I did not watch it this week. So I would say this is all coming from memory, but I don't have a memory. So
I also saw the movie last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts.
That's right. I really want to hear what people thought about it. I didn't want to be the only person who thought it was an amazing film and have other people go, "Oh my gosh, you're so weird." So
I'll say that anyway.
Exactly. So many other reasons.
We all are. We all are here.
I prefer to say quirky. A lot of times you get some sort of sub theme in vampire movies of the vampire lamenting their lost humanness. And I sort of remembering the scene of her leaving and leaving her music behind, I was wondering if that was sort of I want to leave that life behind and not be a vampire or not give in to, not that be the defining person of who I am, because I do know that I can be vulnerable. I can have a relationship in some way. And it's sort of that new birth, new life. And it made me think a little bit of, I like the Ramones reference, Lisa, it was very good. It reminded me of a horror film called Raw. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it's not vampire, it's cannibals, but it's a young girl who's actually a vegetarian because she's a cannibal. And I sort of got that same vibe from it. And I don't know if that's really out there too far or what, but when we do get to recommendations, I do have, I think I'd say it's my favorite vampire movie of all time.
And I'm positive that, Andy, it's going to be one that you say in your recommendations.
Yeah. I'll just give you a thumb. I'll let you say it and I'll just give you the thumbs up.
Okay. Well, the pressure's on.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. Again, it's great to see you guys again. And hope we'll see you a lot. Okay. So, and speaking of recommendations, unless anybody has another comment, we'll jump to recommendations. Any other comments before we do that? Okay. So I don't know if I'm going to name the film that Bruce is thinking about, but I have 3 recommendations for you. All of them are on Canopy, and none of them are in English. So the first one I have for you is a Swedish vampire film I've mentioned before called Let the Right One In from 2008. Exactly. Not to be confused with the 2010 American version called Let Me In, which is, it's okay. But Let the Right One In also contains a female vampire, and it's one of my favorite vampire movies ever. Next, A Tale of Two Sisters from 2003 is a powerful psychological horror tale of 2 Korean sisters, Soo Mi, who's returning home from a mental hospital, and Soo Yun, who has been awaiting her sister's arrival anxiously. Now, when the girls are reunited at their country home, they meet their father's new wife, and things don't go so well. But this is far more than a Wicked Stepmother movie, although it certainly is that. It's a complex film, but it's very rewarding, and I highly recommend it. And finally, my last recommendation is one of the strangest, most compelling uses of black and white cinematography I've ever seen. And this is a film called November from 2017, a movie from Estonia, focusing on a love triangle between a peasant girl, a stable boy, and a sleepwalking baroness. Now, this is based on Estonian folk tales, and it's super weird. It is shocking, it is funny, and it's guaranteed to keep you off balance, and that is November. Okay, let's hear your recommendations. I can't wait for this. I know there's going to be some great ones. All right, who's first?
Okay, we've got Susan, and then we've got Ed and Lisa. But can you repeat the name of the second one? I froze. Oh, thank you. A Tale of Two Sisters.
A Tale of Two Sisters. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Okay, Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a American Western vampire movie called Near Dark. Bill Paxton in it. Pretty good movie.
Not bad.
Thanks, Susan.
All right. Ed?
Yeah, I just discovered this one. Bill Plimpton is a cartoonist, and the movie is Idiots and Angels. It's about a bad guy with who one day wakes up with angels or angel wings on his back, and that make him do good, and then yeah, much to his dismay, and there's no dialogue. It's all action, so it's almost like but it's not a silent film. There's music in it, but yeah, it's the artistry in it is just incredible. So yeah,
cool.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. I did not know about that one.
Okay, so go Lisa, then Bill, then Gary, then the Hislops.
A vampire film called The Only Lovers Left Alive with Tilda Swinton, and it's fantastic because not only are they lovers, they're on different continents. So there's lots of presuming going on, and they've lived there, and they, the whole part of getting them together and then seeing how they've maintained this relationship for so long. It's wonderful. And I really am grateful for that heads up, Bruce and Ethan, regarding Raw. Oh my Lord. So just a quick story. We went to watch the film, and I always ask the people who are showing the film, like, well, what'd you think of it? And the guy was taking our tickets like, are you insane? I'm not seeing that.
Yes.
That's like friggin' intense. And I saw it, and I came up to him on the end. I said, don't worry about it, man. It's a family film. It's about family. Okay. Which it really is. So I highly recommend Raw if you can roll with it. Beautiful film, beautifully shot, right? And I don't know, I'm drawn towards European films in things that it's a beautiful combination of mystery in Europe, because I don't feel like they have to explain everything for the audience, because then you're brought into it more because you have to think. And then if you don't even get it, then there's a sense of mystery. Everybody wins. Okay, all right, that's it.
Thank you, Lisa. That's great.
Okay, we've got Bill. Nope.
Excuse me for giving a blatant commercial, but tomorrow at the Annapolis Library, a very similar movie called Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And it's part of the Knitting series. And it is in black and white, but it is in English. But there is some art to this movie, because it's the only movie where Boris Karloff is Frankenstein, Bela Lugosi is Dracula, and Lon Jr. is the werewolf. So the great actors who bring those great roles, this is the only movie that they bring those roles together in. So if you get a chance, you can stop by Annapolis tomorrow afternoon. You get to see it for free, but you have to knit.
You have to what?
You have to knit.
Oh,
you have to knit. Yes, it's a knitting movie.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, the knitting component. Well, let's hope that's all they're doing with those needles is knitting. Okay.
All right, we've got Gary next, and then Bruce or Ethan.
So mine is probably familiar to most folks here, but it's one of my favorites, and it has the immortal line in it, "Have a potato." The Old Dark House by James Whale.
Yes.
Yes, that's a great one. We've discussed that one here too.
We did a year or so ago.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That one's a lot of fun.
It was creepy. All right, Bruce and Ethan.
Can you really talk about vampire movies on Canopy if you don't bring up What We Do in the Shadows?
Yes, yes, you can.
No, you cannot. No, you cannot.
What We Do in the Shadows. The perfect antithesis if you just want to watch vampires be funny after watching What We Do in the Shadows. Co-directed by Taika Waititi, who is one of the more successful indie to mainstream directors recently, one of the better comedy directors of the 21st century, a hilarious mockumentary about modern vampires living in New Zealand, just going about their daily lives. There's got to be at least one perfect quote. No, I won't. You experience it for yourself if you haven't seen it. It's one of the best comedies of the 21st century.
When you tend to only date other vampires and you're immortal, you tend to have a lot of ex-lovers. And if you're not good at relationship breakups, it haunts you, literally.
It's a problem.
Right.
It's
And if you-
definitely a problem.
One of the lines in the movie, the problem with, people with non-vampires is that they have a tendency to die. Oops. Yes, I've heard of R-Flag means death. I've been meaning to check it out.
Yeah, and he was also the director of Hunt for the Wilder People that we watched a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
Great, thanks for that. John, then Jan.
I don't really know much about vampire movies, but this, which you might call vampire adjacent, it's a very interesting movie by the Japanese director Kobayashi. It's outside his main oeuvre, but it's an impressive film, really beautiful color, quite on, based on a story by Lafcadio Hearn, who was an American, but who wrote a number of stories that were set in Japan. And I don't know if you would call it a horror movie or not. It's very artful, but it's well worth watching if you ever get a chance to see it.
That's a beautiful film. I agree.
All right. Jan? Thank you, John.
I'd like to promote a new physical media release. This is a new documentary on Boris Karloff called The Man Behind the Monster. It was a Kickstarter. Beautiful job. You can, if you want a copy, you can order it on Amazon now. I'm sure it'll be streaming too. The creator talked to Del Toro, Joe Dante, Roger Corman, Christopher Plummer shortly before he passed away. Gives you a real feel for Karloff the man, who, like Lon Chaney Sr., was a character actor who found acclaim for his horror films. But oh my gosh, what a good actor and what a good person. Andy just did The Black Cat in person. Was it last night, Andy?
It was last night, yes.
How was the reaction to The Black Cat?
Oh, Jan, I'll tell you, we didn't have a huge audience. We had 20 people. 19 of them had never seen the film before, and they loved it.
Yeah,
absolutely loved it. Although it's one of the weirdest movies from that era, they loved it. I mean, it's got Satan worship. It's got really weird sexual things going on. It's got a person being skinned alive, but they loved it.
You should show them seconds.
See how they like that. Yeah, let's see how they like that.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, any more recommendations? Thanks, Jen.
Before we do that, I wanted to mention something that Lisa said, and that was about the Castro Theater. And I was going to post this in the chat, but it's on Eddie Muller's Facebook page, which I'm not able to link. And I know everybody's not on Facebook, but if you don't know about it, at least I don't know if you know about it, but the Castro Theater is a grand movie theater in San Francisco, and it has been bought, and it's a 1,400 seat movie theater. They do other things in that theater as well, but it's primarily a movie theater. They have the Noir City Film Festival there. They have the San Francisco Silent Film Festival there. Lots of other film festivals there. They have a new owner, and they decided they want to turn this into a music venue, and they want to take all of the seats out so people can move around and have drinks and open up the bar. And it's really a travesty what's going on. If you're on Facebook, find Eddie Muller. He wrote a fantastic article about it. But the main thing I want to tell you is if you have a theater where you live, and I know we all live in different places, but if you have not a Metroplex, but a standalone theater, especially a historical theater that's in your neighborhood, fight to keep that alive. do everything you can to keep those alive, because those are vanishing because of things like this. People wanting to have another music venue. I mean, how many music venues are in San Francisco? There's got to be several dozen. It's just a money grab, and we're having a tough enough time having films seen, in a theater anyway. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. If you have a theater in your area that you love, please support it, and please don't let it die.
Thank you. Awesome.
And I hate to end on a downer like that. So I'm so glad you guys liked tonight's movie and tried something different. I know there are a couple of you that had seen it before, but I really appreciate you guys taking a chance on all the movies Darnice and I throw at you. Some of them you've seen, and some of them you're like, I don't know what you guys are showing me, but I'm willing to give it a try. So we are grateful. That's a very rewarding thing. So we try not to give you anything that you're going to just absolutely hate,
but we never know. We never know.
Yeah, we never know what you guys are going to do. If you're going to do this, or you're going to do this, or
So are you going to show any Godard movies? Is that what you're avoiding?
If it's on Canopy, it's possible, John.
If it's on Canopy, anything goes.
Anything goes.
Anything goes. All right. Well, thank you folks again so much. And it's great to have you once again. And I hope to see you for Certified Copy. If you're local, I will see you on November the 17th for Crisscross, a fantastic film noir. So everybody take care, stay safe, watch some great movies. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Bill.
Good night, Bill.
Bill
the Vampire.